All right. Thank you, everyone who is tuning in to this morning's Speak Out, especially kids from TDSB who are joining from their classrooms. We're so excited to be hosting this panel discussion in alignment with this year's theme of investing in women. We're going to be taking our own spin on this discussion and talking about how we can invest in girls and in young women to pursue careers in this exciting industry of construction. So before we introduce our wonderful panel of speakers, I would like to turn it over to an esteemed guest that we have here with us today. Lisa Ray is the Vice Chair of. Prior to her current role, Lisa actually served as a member of parliament and in the cabinet of Prime Minister Stephen Harper as the Minister of Transportation, Minister of Labor, and Minister of Natural Resources. And prior to elected office from 1999 to 2008, Lisa served in a number of different roles within the Toronto Port Authority, including a lengthy stint as president and CEO. And in 2001, she was the first woman harbor master of a Canadian port. So pretty impressive stuff there, Lisa. I'd love to turn it over to you for a few words to our guests.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Meg. I really appreciate the invitation to be here today. And hello, everybody. How are you? Be warned, I'm in my house today. You may see one or two cats walk behind me. Just ignore me. They love the spotlight. They're shameless. I think that they want to have their own TikTok channel. I'm not really sure, but I feel like they do some days. I just want to talk to you really briefly. Yes, it's true. I have had a lot of hats that I've worn in my life. I'm 55 years old now, and I've had an amazing career, but it wasn't a straight path. And I took some risks along the way. But I started in science. That was where I studied when I was in university. And then I went to law school, fortunate enough to go there. And then I worked at the port, as was just mentioned, and at an airport as well. Then I went into politics. Now I'm in banking. And now I'm in construction because I recently just joined the board of something called Pomerleau Construction. And all of these things are similar in one way. There's not a lot of women. There wasn't a lot of women in science back then. There's not as many women in science as we like to have now. Certainly, there's not a lot of women in banking, guys. I think banking has been the worst in terms of not seeing enough women in investment banking. I'm really excited about construction. I'm seeing more and more women out there taking charge, being engineers, being site managers. And I love seeing women build stuff because they think about things in a different way than men do. That's okay. That's the way things are. It's hard to be the first woman. It's hard to be the only woman. I absolutely get that. But as more of us get to these places, like I just talked about, we hope that we can make it easier for you. And speaking to women leaders out there, you know what? If you make it to a certain level and you're proud of your achievements, I'm proud of you too, but you can't pull up the ladder behind you. You actually have a responsibility to make sure that we build this path consistently, one step at a time, one woman at a time, so that we do get to a point where we're talking about how few of us there are in an area that we want to work in because we love to do the career that we want to choose to do. The theme of today is invest in you, invest in you. So listen, I'm going to look at it a little bit differently. I want you to think about investing in yourself, not just companies investing in women in order to bring them into their areas. Think about investing in yourself. And what do I mean by that? I mean, invest in yourself to build your confidence. And the way you can do that is first and foremost through education and training. And you're going to hear about that today. It really is the foundation to what you want to do next. But you use these things to invest in three really important things. And I want you to think about this. You need to invest in your mental health. There's no question about it. You need to invest in your physical health. And we all know it can be difficult to find the time to go and exercise or to eat the right things that we should be eating. Trust me, I love French fries and I'm never giving them up, but I also know that I have to go for a walk on occasion. So invest in your physical health, invest in your mental health. But you know what else you need to invest in? You need to invest in your financial health. You need to make sure that no matter what happens to you in your life, you are independent and you are able to look after yourself and your loved ones. And that's what a career in construction can do for you, in law can do for you, in banking can do for you. These are really great areas to be in to protect your own financial health. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of the day. The panel looks fantastic. I'm not going to be sticking around for the whole thing because I actually got to go and invest in my own financial health because I've got 2 sons in university. So I'm going to finish up my work here at CIBC today, but I was so happy to be invited to come along, and I wish you all the very best. Happy International Women's Day.
That was amazing, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I was taking a little bit of notes. I was like, okay, these are nuggets from a woman who has found herself in different spaces, the political arena, in the corporate world, and that kind of stuff. But it's so true what you say around investing in yourself, investing in your health and your well-being, the multiple dimensions of that. And I hope that's what some of the girls and actually just all the youth who are tuning in. I mean, that is carte blanche. That applies to everybody. Making sure that you're okay, it means that you can be the best version of yourself. So thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure. Bye, everyone.
So before we get into it, I do want to acknowledge and thank RBC Future Launch, which is the Bold Series SpeakOut series sponsor, for their generous support of this important initiative to help close that information gap and to get more youth interested in careers in construction. We're just going to tune into a quick video from the program.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark Beckles and I'm the Vice President of Social Impact and Innovation here at RBC. Today, youth are the most unemployed age group in Canada, with almost 800,000 young Canadians not currently in employment, education, or training. Canada's skilled tradespeople that have long been the backbone of our economy are more critical than ever, and so is solving this sector's main challenges: the underrepresentation of women and immigrants, the need to double down on digital training, and the ongoing stigmas around trades careers. And while these challenges are significant, so are the opportunities. Through the RBC Future Launch partnership with Bolt, we aim to ensure that you understand what opportunities are available in the skilled trades industry and how to get started in a career that you are passionate about. Because at RBC, we see a future in your future.
Thank you so much for that. Let's get into it. We have a good number of questions to get through. So International Women's Day, which is actually tomorrow, so March 8th, it's really an opportunity for us to celebrate and to honor the tremendous work that's been done to date in closing that gender gap. But it is also definitely a time and an opportunity to come together as women and as just a collective whole to talk about what we can do to create a more gender equal world. So today I am joined by 3 amazing panelists and women who represent education, a home builder, and a union perspective on how we can work together from start to finish to support greater representation of women in this industry. So we are joined today by Rosalie Griffith at Westview Centennial, Lisa Price, the Assistant Director at Leona Local 183 Training Center, and last but not least, Judy Tebbett from Site Superintendent at Tridell's Well community right downtown. Any of you have Instagram, you're probably seeing all the TikToks and fun things you can do down there. And Judy is responsible for it all. Just kidding. And my name is Maggie Hall. I'm on the social impact team here at Tridell, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's discussion. So before we dive in, I'd love to take just a moment for each of you to introduce yourselves to our viewers today. Rosalie, why don't we start with you?
Well, I want to say what an honor it is to be with such a great panel as well. My name is Rosalie Griffith, and I am the very proud principal of Westview Centennial Secondary School. And in that role, one of the things that I just want to say I'm extremely proud of is our school has one of the only, perhaps the only, but certainly one of the only growing tech departments in TDSB. We're extremely proud of that. And my school also had the largest number of successful applicants to the OYAP, the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program in the TDSB. So we have an incredibly strong tech program. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to, specifically getting our girls into that program, but I'm absolutely proud to be a part of this today. So thank you.
Amazing. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Lisa, would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Maggie. And I'm so honored to be here as well with these strong women to discuss some of the issues that, our youth is facing. My name again is Lisa Price, and I am the Assistant Director of LiUNA Local 183 Training Center. We are the training arm of the largest construction union in North America. We work with about 75,000 members within our organization, and we are the training arm of that. So we provide apprenticeship and skills training. We offer 4 apprenticeships, and I'd say about 10 to 15 skills programs that are dedicated to the sectors of construction that our members work in. So I've been in this role for about the last 11 years, and I have been blessed to see the fruits of our labor, no pun intended, but watching these young people come through and take apprenticeships and come through the OYAP program and be really successful. And I'm so happy to see that more women and young women are getting more interested in the trades. And we're just hoping that it continues to grow and we can keep expanding, this message to the youth.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. And Judy, over to you.
So I'm Judy Tebbett. I work on site as a site super at The Well, which is actually one of our biggest projects in all of Canada right now. And I actually work currently with a group of handy people as opposed to just handy men, which is kind of nice. It's basically, I've been doing it for 22 years and it's been interesting for sure. But that's too many.
Awesome. Thanks, Judy. So I mentioned briefly at the theme of this year's International Women's Day, investing in women. So Rosalie, you had talked about how you have one of the, if not the only, expanding tech program. But I wondered if you could start us off just by telling us about some of the initiatives that are happening at your school at Westview Centennial that empower girls to pursue opportunity in the construction trades.
Thank you for the question. I think the key really is we know that there's a gap and we want to see that filled. We know that the trades is an incredible opportunity in so many ways. And we want to make sure that, those that are identifying as girls have an opportunity to participate in that. So we've been very, very targeted. Now, I full disclosure, in my role as principal, really, I have the best job because I just need to make sure we have the right tech staff here. We have an absolutely outstanding construction teacher and construction program. And so my job is to support that, to make sure that it gets everything it needs in order to grow. And that team, who I'm just incredibly proud of, they've done some really targeted things. So for example, we have a masonry program at my school, which is very rare if you go into secondary schools. And the teacher who leads that, who has a background in masonry himself, he started a program called Women in Masonry, and it's a lunch program. So it's targeting our girls coming in an all-female environment. And it's a lunch program and kids love to come for lunch. I'm not gonna lie, but that's the draw. That's the hook to get them there. And having a group of women and young women and girls that are working together with the support of a very passionate educator has really paid dividends, because having that opportunity to do it and taste it and explore it without that pressure in such a supportive environment has caused some of our girls to register for those courses. And that's the start of them having an incredible career in the trades. We also have pathway fairs. A lot of schools do that, but we have one that is also targeting trades because, again, as my school is very passionate about having a real viable pathway to the trades for students. And again, part of that outreach during that pathway fair was to grab the girls, to make sure that they knew that this was a pathway we wanted them to think about very seriously. I will tell you, in my conversation with my construction colleague this morning, he and I, kind of did a high five, because our goal, what we're aiming for down the road, and again, my job is to support it, is to have an all-female construction class. So we would love to actually have a class that is all girls, all young women working together, supporting each other, being in an environment where they see themselves every time they turn around and they don't feel like they're the only one and they don't feel like a minority. So we're really excited and passionate about that. And that's one of our big goals that we're working towards. I will say too, at the school level, because I know that we are at the start of that pathway. We've had incredible opportunities to build partnerships, for example, with Bolton Tridel, as well as with some of the locals, and bringing them in and networking and having them meet and get a chance to talk to some of our young women, again, is encouraging them to really look at the trades as a viable option. So I'm extremely excited and passionate about it. And, you know, it's such a joy for me to support that type of work happening in the secondary school level.
Very cool. And before we started, we were talking about how, you know, the three women on our panel kind of represent different stages of you know, a person's progression to ultimately a career in the trade. So Lisa, you're sort of like that next stage after the secondary school you know, world. And I would love to hear, and if you could share some of those ways that your training center is making the trades a more appealing career avenue for young women.
So we really are trying to draw in young girls. And I'm noticing that even with our OYAP programs, the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship partnerships that we do have with most of the boards across the province, that there are more women that are coming into the trades. More young women are starting to ask questions about, well, let me see what this is all about. I like to use my hands. I like to build. I like to create. So one of the things that we like to do is partner with women dedicated partners. So we're in touch with the YWCA, where we bring in tours of just women. We work with Blue Door, some of our social enterprises that focus on helping women who have been perhaps in difficult circumstances, or who are, you know, dealing with other personal situations where they're looking at a change in career. So we have a lot of tours and a lot of sort of presence within those organizations. We have an outreach coordinator that will go out and speak just to groups of women that are dedicated to looking at a career in the trades. With respect to young people, same thing. Some of our individual schools within the school boards will say that they have a group of young women that want to come out and see what's happening at our training center, what type of programs we can offer. And they'll actually do hands-on days with us where they can come and do some experiential learning, get their hands dirty, sort of feel what it's like to, you know, touch brick, to touch the masonry, to work with concrete. Our presence at a lot of the shows like Skills Ontario and some of the other smaller shows draw in a lot of young girls as well, because we have technology that is advancing. We have VR that we work with to kind of entice young people. We have machines and simulators that also tend to draw in young girls, because the technology is changing on site. And there's a lot of areas where now women are feeling like, okay, I could do this, because we know traditionally it's a male-dominated world. That's just the reality. But if we don't tap into that 50% of the population, like you were saying earlier, we are doing a disservice to ourselves, and we're not bridging that gap. We're also focused on a women's only caucus, where we have our international office that basically looks at women's issues on site. What's happening on site? What can we do to help better the industry, work with our employer partners? So 183 is very active in that, as well as LIUNA internationally also. We also focus with our stewards who are on site, our shop stewards. We have training sessions where they actually not so much cater to the women, but sort of say, listen, we know that you may be a minority on this site and you're underrepresented, but let's get you sort of the lay of the land and make you feel comfortable. You know where, you know, your washrooms are, you know where access points are for you to do certain things if you need to do it. So they're like an ambassador to those women that are now coming on the site. So we sort of try to mix between the training aspect and getting more women in that area, and then also extending that on site so that women do feel more comfortable entering the trades that we offer.
Totally. And I wonder if you could just quickly elaborate, because I'm sure that there are, you know, some teachers who are watching, some youth who are watching, who are sort of, and I mean, I was blown away by like, dun, 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 we're doing all these things. What do you think is the most effective way to reach out to young girls, to girls and young women, to actually encourage them to be in the trades? Like, what's your most effective outreach method, you would say?
I think for us, honestly, is two. It's having them come to our campuses and actually seeing what they can do and feeling comfortable knowing that, you know, typically the laborers are not something that most young people think of. They think of their traditional plumbers, electricians, carpenters, which wonderful work. But there's a lot of jobs that are really going unnoticed that a lot of these young women don't, like they're saying, I can lay tile. Oh, I can do masonry. I can do trim work. I can be a handy person. Yes. So I think having them come to our campus has been most successful, as well as in combination with the outreach that we do on social media platforms. Because what we're doing now is we're taking these young women who have become site supervisors, foremen, who are becoming stewards, showcasing them on our member Mondays, on training Tuesdays, to say, look, here's some young women that have now gone through our programs that are highly successful. So they can see themselves in those women and realize, well, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. So I find that those in tandem together are, for us, have been the best success stories.
Very cool. And I mean, Judy, I think this is where I'm going to tap on you, because I'd love to hear from you as a woman who is working on site every day. And when you were thinking about, possible careers for yourself, when you were doing sort of your own bit of exploration, what actually interested you in the world of construction that you would want girls and young women to know?
Oh, I guess for me, I have a long story, but I'm not going to get into that. Once I was in construction, it became more apparent. So sort of what Lisa was saying, and actually with Rosalie as well, I think it's fantastic that you guys have these trainings and these ways. We didn't have awareness, if you think back, right? There was no awareness. If you went into it knowing that it was going to be a male-dominated industry and you were going to be in it with them, and you had to find a way to navigate it with them, right? Which wasn't easy. But now with all this awareness, it's changed dramatically from where I started. But I got interested more once I was working for the company. Originally, when I started, it was just kind of like, I'm working, right? And I'm in this company. I didn't really know what it meant until the longer I worked here. The longer I worked here, the more I saw the amount of jobs open up and the different types of jobs and where I kind of fit myself in. And construction was the right place for me. But I would never have thought management. Originally, I was going to go into carpentry. That's what I thought, because when I was looking at jobs, I had no idea masonry was even an option. That was not even a choice. It was like, well, these tools are lighter. That seemed easier, right? But now I know, it's like, now that I've done it and I've gone in it, it's like once I joined the company and started seeing all the different options and they started exposing me to more and more, it became like, oh my gosh, there's so many choices. And I could be in management, I could be on site, I can work alongside people, I can be their boss. I'm like, oh, nobody told me this was even a choice. And I didn't know companies like Tridel had these options, had like different caste systems where you could jump into anywhere. And they recognized that this company in particular, I can't speak for all companies, but for me, I recognized that they recognized my potential. They helped guide me and to see what I can actually do and how great I could become at my job, which is how I got to here, right? So it took a lot, but yeah, what you guys are doing at where you are now is unbelievable. If that stuff was there when I was 21 years old, I would have taken a whole different path. Not that I don't love my job. Don't misunderstand. I love my job, love my company, and I love where I work, but it's definitely something I would have looked at differently back then. And maybe when I started, they had people come to our schools and talk about stuff, and it was geared to, well, those people, not really the girls, because as far as they were concerned, I don't know why, but my gender doesn't seem to affect my ability to think or learn or understand any of the concepts that we talk about every day. And my size doesn't affect the ability to lift anything or move anything, or as well as know what looks good and what looks bad when I'm working. Sorry, the lights went up behind me. It looks kind of odd. And I'm in a boardroom, just so everybody knows I'm not turning off the lights behind me, in case you're wondering. But yeah, so I learned a lot through those things, and and that's kind of where it started for me. When I was young, I didn't really know. I knew I liked to work with my hands, and I worked. I had a father who was worked in cars and things like that, and he had a bit of a hard time going through it with me, right? Because he was like, well, you don't want to be in a man's world, right? Because it's dirty, it's gross. And one misconception that I will say is that just because we dress a certain way in jeans, our shoes are dirty, doesn't make us not smart. We know what's going on. And if you look around, we're putting up the entire city with these people, men and women. And it takes all of us to do that. And you can't have it all be men or all be women. It needs to be a mix of us, because we do everybody brings something different to the table. And it helps to have everybody collaborate. And one thing you're going to learn if you come on to a job site, no matter where you come into the system, whether in Lisa's field or Rosalie's or mine or anywhere, you have to work as a collaborative team. It takes a team to build a building. I can't build that building without them. And it takes everybody on my crew as well as everybody on my job to help me do that. And respecting each other makes that be this big thing that we do all the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And Judy, I think it's so important that people do understand this is why things like Bolt exist. This is why, training centers exist. This is why, Rosalie, I can't even remember how many different tech streams you have. I think it's like 11 or something like that. Anyways, but why it's so important to spend the time, especially in your younger years, checking things out, experiencing things, understanding what kind of resonates with your skills, with your passions, and because it's not so linear, that there's ways once you get in to sort of explore and go from there. So really, really great advice. And so I think actually something that we were talking about a little bit beforehand, but mentioned briefly at the start of this, and I would love to put this out to all three of you. What role do you think that mentorship plays into your own journey, and what advice would you give to a girl or a young woman in terms of seeking out someone to get that advice from, or to seek a mentor? So Rosalie, I'm gonna give it to you because teachers are probably the earliest mentors that we get. So what do you think about the role of a mentor?
I think that's extremely important. And I think, I think it's instrumental to have that mentorship, because that, even if I think about my own journey, which is, adjacent to the trades, but somebody believing that you can when you're young is sometimes what you need for you then to believe that you can. So that's the first step often for that pathway, whatever that pathway is. And when you have a mentor, it's not just taking that first step. I think it really, as I said, is instrumental in taking that first step, but knowing that you have somebody as you continue your journey is sometimes what will make you take that step and feel confident doing so. Even myself, when I think about the mentors that I've had in my life, two very strong women. And, when I think about mentors, one of the things that I personally believe is that you have to choose your own mentor, because I've been in programs where mentors are assigned to you, and that's lovely. And it's good to know there's a program. But, when I think about the mentors who really helped to mold me, they were women that were similar to me. They were loud, they broke rules. They were the people that I'm like, yes, I see myself being like you. And so that makes sense. And I trust you and I can talk to you. And we need to make sure we have that for our women as well, our young women. We want them to take the step. We want them to stay on the journey. And they're going to be able to do that if they feel that there are people there to not necessarily catch them when they fall, because they're strong and they can go, but that they can question with, that they can feel safe with, that they can bring their challenges to, that they can get advice from. That's the thing I think that's really going to help them to continue to be successful as they move forward.
Yeah. And Lisa, I mean, you were talking about how you're now showcasing some of the women on like your social media and having them come out to these events. What's your sort of stance on mentorship? How is it important? How do you sort of be selective in picking a good one?
Well, and that's the thing. It's you want to ensure that you are picking a good one, because it helps to drive you and move you forward. And for these young people, again, like Rosalie mentioned, you need to choose your own mentor. Like for myself, coming into an industry that was predominantly male, and even LIUNA traditionally was a lot of male representatives, a lot of union reps are all male. My father was in the labor movement, so he was, obviously male, my grandfather. So it was tough for me to sort of find my niche and how I would, sort of fit in. And there was a woman actually who's through our international in the States, and she is one of the executives and oversees our largest training network. She oversees all of it with her, obviously with her supervisor, but she's his right hand. And just watching her command the room and talk to Senate in the States and going to the White House and talking about the labor movement and talking about the trades and how we need to get young people into the trades and how important it is, even in the US, and then coming to Canada to train us. I was like, all these men, and there's one woman who is commanding all of it. So for me, that was like, I couldn't even believe it. For me, and to be honest, I work very closely with Tridel. We have partnerships with them and we've worked with them. And I'm so impressed at the women that are like, I've worked with Christina, I now see Judy, and I'm just like, these women, these are my mentors. Like I see women like that are working at the well and like supervising this massive project. And so these are stories I can tell these young women that are coming into our programs. We offer also an apprentice award every year at our industry awareness. And the last one that we had, it was a young woman who won the award. And, she had come in very, very young. She was in her teens. She kind of was just like, I don't know, I love the trades. She did her apprenticeship program. She was actually the star of the show. I mean, it wasn't even like we planned it, but she just was unbelievable. She was the most skilled person in a class of men, in a class of 12. And so for her now, she had not a lot of mentors, she said, but now she's happy that she can be a mentor to someone else. So when we showcase her, when we talk about her story, she's just one of many. We now know that she is a mentor for young people, and we really sort of push her out there, whether she likes it or not, to sort of be able to give her story and talk about it so that young women can see themselves in people like her. Because for me, in a management role, sometimes it's hard because I talk about that. I say, listen, we have female instructors that teach health and safety. We have, female site supervisors. We have female administrative people. We have female management. But again, sometimes when they're like, but I want to be in the field only, it's good to have these kind of mentors that they can sort of work towards. People like Judy, people like Christina from Tridel, other people that I've worked with, that they see strong women that are, you know, commanding a room of men and being like, hey, this is what we need to get done. A mix of men and women, but, you know, male dominated. And so for me, these would be my mentors, and hopefully these young girls' mentors as well down the road.
Amazing. And Judy, I'm gonna have you cap off this question before we go on to the next one. That, I mean, you sort of saying that you've been in this space, you've now been in sort of your career for 22 years, and that, you know, some of the things that didn't exist for you coming into it, and you've had to break down a lot of barriers. You've had to fumble your way through the dark, and now sort of, not to say ruin the light, but just, you know, you've had to figure a lot of stuff out. And so I'm gonna actually pose it slightly different to you of, you know, in your role as a woman who is, you know, commanding a crew, who is on the biggest project, residential project in Canada, you know, what can you offer as a mentor? Like, what are the things that you think that you can give to people as a mentor?
Oh, okay, that's not where I thought you were going with that. So I had a whole plan here. Well, to be honest, you forget that you are a mentor sometimes, right? Because you were going through it, and I was being mentored. And I was lucky enough to be mentored by men and women both. So I got to see both styles of mentorship. And it turns out they're very similar. And because the end result is always the same. But one thing that's great is having the females on the job allowed me to be able to discuss things with them. It's not to say that men don't understand, but we don't always speak the same language when we're talking about things. So it was nice to have them to be able to bounce thoughts off of and have a soundboard. One thing we try to do on site, which I think Lisa, you touched on, is we're trying to make everybody feel welcome. So I didn't realize from having so many females come through that one of the things we make a point of doing is telling them where the bathroom is. As small of a thing as that sounds, it makes them feel like they're included in the job, that they know where to go and they know how to get out and they know who to talk to and how to find things. Because as much as men come in, they just kind of wander off and everybody helps them. Right? Where sometimes the women come in and they're just kind of lost, right? Because nobody's giving them the information that they need to get around. And it's like, well, we do that from day one. We meet them, we talk to everybody. We do that with all our staff. We make everybody feel exactly the same. So everybody knows where to go and what to do, right? Yeah. For me, and like for mentoring people, it's been interesting because it's new for me, right? Like I said, I was always being mentored for a long time. And I've only recently taken into this role where I'm mentoring people, and it's different. And like I said, what I did today is I asked a lot of the junior staff how they feel and how they felt working for here and working alongside all of these men, and if what we did has helped them in any real way. And they said it has. They said they found the environments have gotten better, even though they're in a male-dominated industry. I asked them what their biggest challenge was. They said apologies. Everybody apologizes to them, which is something that men need to realize that they need to stop doing. They need to just think before they talk. And then they wouldn't have to apologize. And we're all the same here, right? We're all trying to get the same result of our job done. And your job is the most important thing. It's what you should need to focus on and not worry what's happening so much around you, right?
Yeah.
I found and I was mentored, like I said, by a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And I had loud people like Christina, who is fantastic. I actually have a project manager currently on my job who is running 3 jobs in full. And she is incredible. And I got really lucky to have worked alongside. They were actually my coworkers at one point and now are my bosses, which is actually pretty exciting as well. And they still mentor me to date because you never stop learning in this job. And I learned a lot from the men I worked with as well because of their approaches and how they handle things. And sometimes it's not about a male and female thing. It's how people react. And choosing a mentor, I found for me, if you're going to choose a mentor, you're going to want to look for someone, like you said, it's not necessarily the one you choose, right? It's sometimes somebody chooses you or vice versa. But I say, look for somebody who answers your questions and is patient with you and gives you an opportunity to ask your questions as well as answer them for them, right? And allows you constructive criticism where they take you aside and explain things to you and give you an opportunity to make that change. And this is coming from all the different people I've mentored with. All of them brought something different. One guy was very, very patient and very calm. No matter how he'd be in the middle of a yelling match, and that guy will slow his day down to mentor you. I've also worked with females who are loud and they handle things and they take responsibility and they're okay with it. And I've been with people who've given me full space to be myself and allow me to do my job as I see and make mistakes and be able to fix them and know that it wasn't like the world didn't end because I made a mistake. I'm not the worst thing on the planet. And one thing women have in their heads constantly is they think that they're not good enough, or they can't get out of it. It's enough. You've done nothing to give yourself that reason to believe that you aren't good enough to stand right alongside everybody here. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have to try, and you have to be okay with the fact that you are going to be emotional. It comes with us. It's normal. And what everybody else needs to do is get used to it. It didn't change. We didn't start this way. We were always this way. So the more comfortable everybody can get with who they are, the more comfortable the people around us can get with who we are. And that can only make it better for us, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of already answered my next question.
Sorry.
Which is, no, and this is perfect. So because we have young girls and young women who are tuning in from, across the city, they probably have like their own set of assumptions about what it takes to be in construction and what it takes to be a successful woman in construction. And, Judy, I think you really touched on some of the, assumptions that some of us can have, like that imposter syndrome. And I don't know whether girls today have heard that term before, but where you walk into a room and you immediately think, I can't do this. There are so many more people who are more experienced. There are so many more people who, have more education than I do. I'm never going to be as good as them. Every expert started at ground zero. Every single person who is ever amazing at something started exactly at the same space that you did. It's about patience, and it's about also, what Lisa said, of being kind to yourself, taking that time of building up your confidence. So I might actually ask Lisa this question around, some of the stereotypes and assumptions that that exist about women who are in construction. What can we do to address those? There's some that we can lean into. Where we are detail oriented. We are generally very compassionate people and trying to work collectively with that's generally a trait that women exude. So we can lean into that a bit. But what are some of those stereotypes or assumptions that we can actively challenge so that we can have that greater representation in the industry?
I think that one of the big ones is that women can't, they're not strong enough. They need help. They need assistance. So they can't really do things on their own. So sometimes what we were finding when we first started working with, for example, our ACON Women in the Trades program, we had a lot of women coming through the campus. Men would be like, oh, should we help them? They probably need some help. And it's like, let them ask for help. The same way another man in the class or another young man would say, I'm not really sure how to do this, and whether they ask a man or a woman. But I think that was one of the biggest stereotypes was if there was another situation where there was one female in the class and it was all male, they'd be like, oh, well, should we help her? Should we, they always wanted to sort of be very, sensitive or which I appreciated the fact that they were at least thinking about it, but then it was becoming too sort of focused on her and not letting her just be part of that class and show her abilities. It became let's just wait and see if she needs us to do something for her. So I think that's one of the big things that we've tried to change. And we sort of, in our orientations, speak to individuals and say, listen, if someone, regardless male or female, if they don't ask you for help, don't offer. If they don't need it, they want to learn and make those mistakes on their own. There's one instructor, so speak to the instructor, and that individual will bring them over. And if they do say, hey, you know what, could you help me out? Then by all means, And I think too, on site, when Judy was talking about, just knowing where the washroom is and feeling comfortable and feeling you're acknowledged in a way, but not necessarily singled out, because there's a fine line between being,
Totally.
acknowledged and accepted, and then hyper focused on this woman. Is she going to be a problem? Is she going to be emotional? Is she going to pick at every little thing that someone asks her to do? Oh, she's going to be a liability. She's already going to go and complain. HR is going to get involved. So these are all some of those stereotypes that really stick to women that I've heard back from some of our job sites. So it's just a matter, I think, of educating employers, constantly talking to them and saying, listen, this is the situation, and going through these steps. And then obviously these young women proving themselves on that job site, because ultimately that's what it's about. When you prove that you're an asset to that company, regardless of gender, you're an asset to that company. And suddenly all the other things sort of fall away. You just become a hard worker and a dedicated worker and someone that they can utilize on site to ultimately, up their productivity. So I think those are some of the biggest issues.
It's 100% true. You're right. It really doesn't matter. I thought it would when I got started because I was new, I was young, and I was female. And all of these things combined on a job site seem scary. When you walk on a job, I'm one of those rare people, I think, that walked on a job and didn't care. I walked in and I owned my space. but I also didn't know anything. I thought I knew stuff, but when I got there, they explained to me that I didn't. And they explained to me how I needed to know. But they showed me, they guided me, and they, knowing the difference between constructive criticism and actual criticism helped a lot. And then I found that as long as I stayed focused on my job and what I was trying to achieve, then everybody kind of did the same, right? They stay focused, right? You don't bring anything else to the table other than work, then there's nothing else to talk about.
Absolutely.
So I can only be judged on the work that I do every day, right?
Yeah.
And it fell by the wayside at some point. It fell away, all the things. And it's both things. Like you said, it's talking to the higher management of companies and getting them to filter this down to their staff and understand that this is the new wave. Even if they don't agree, the people below them might. So they need to get on board. And then as well, it's for women out there, for any of the young people out there, you need to get into the new mindset that you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Like I said, as a woman in the industry, there's you come with emotions. It's just who we are. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a line of professionalism, and as long as you stay within that line of professionalism, it doesn't matter. I've cried at work. It happens. You get so angry. That's what we do. It's not personal. It's not like that's my normal reaction. It's just that's how we're designed. It comes with being who we are. And we need to accept it. It's okay. When I came on site, you do it as a person. You automatically, you've done something wrong. Even if they're not telling you are, you still think it. Every time you make a mistake, you think, oh, it's the worst possible thing. It's not. You made a mistake. We all make them all the time. And we get past them. And here we are. I didn't make it here doing everything right. I made it here because I did things wrong. If I didn't do anything wrong, I would never learn how to do it better or faster or more efficient. So have fun, enjoy it, focus, right? You can do it. There's nothing that prevents you. And if anybody does, know the difference and know that there's support everywhere now. There's not one person I've talked to that doesn't stand next to me when I talk about things, right? They don't stand behind me or below me. They stand next to me, right? Because they bring something to the table just like everyone else. And we respect that here. I can't speak for everywhere. We respect it here.
And I think, Judy, it's so important. And Rosalie, I'm going to come to you in a quick second, because the concept of trial and error and learning and, failing up, as they say, what better place to do that than at a training center or in school? So, Rosalie, you're on the front lines along with your teachers to girls who are making decisions about their post-secondary and their career next steps. So you're probably actually closest to hearing what some of these misconceptions, assumptions, stereotypes, whatever you want to call them. I'd love to have sort of a bit of an open exchange between the three of you, where maybe we just talk about Rosalie, maybe start us off by just saying, let's challenge some of those stereotypes. And how are you doing that in a secondary setting with girls who might be saying, well, I don't know if this is for me. I don't want to be dirty, or I don't want to be a plumber. I'm more interested in management, and that of their parents as well. We could have a whole other speak out on, assumptions that parents have or desires that parents have for their kids. But, Rosalie, what are some of the things that you're hearing in a school setting that we can work to correct?
Well, I need to just first say that the teacher in me is totally in love with this conversation and this idea of learning and making mistakes and growing. That is the foundation for all of it. And, the optimistic part I can share is that, I think we're in, at least, maybe in my environment, I'm in a place that's different than it was, that kind of heralds back to what Judith was saying before. But I really think exposure is the key. So those misconceptions go away when you are in that environment with people doing that work. And so, again, I'm so proud because our tech program, we have a shop that is masonry. We have shops where they are framing, they are doing that work. And so when they're there doing that work and experiencing it and touching it and having conversations with people who have done it and having people come in, and this touches back on something that both Lisa and Judith talked about, but that seeing of yourself, that representation, when we have people who are coming in that they are talking to who are doing this work and then they're touching it, those kinds of misconceptions that we kind of thought of in the past, the girls that I've talked to, they don't have them because their reality is different. So they're experiencing firsthand, and they're getting opportunities sometimes to go out to sites, or to go visit training centers, or to go and those excursions. We traditionally did excursions in school, because we knew the value of taking kids out of that classroom and seeing that real authentic experience. Now I have the benefit of not only doing that, but also having that authentic experience in my building. So they have a chance to see and touch and feel and talk. So they're not carrying those same misconceptions that I think we traditionally had in the past.
Amazing. And Rosalie, can I just sort of kind of probe in a little bit deeper here? Because I am curious as, in terms of what you hear maybe from parents, and I don't think we have any necessarily parents who are tuning in right now, but, for kids who are here and, they're kind of flirting with the idea of going into the trades, but, maybe their parents are saying, yeah, I want you to go to university. I want you to follow this very, deliberate pathway. What would you say to some of your students now, having heard from, Judy and Lisa here? What would you say to some of the students whose parents might have those misconceptions, and what can they do to sort of support their parents in seeing another avenue or another possibility?
I think I love that question. I think we're at a moment in time where I don't have to do that heavy lifting alone at the school. It is happening here because we engage in those conversations. We have lots of trusting relationships with the parents and our tech department and those teachers and our guidance counselors who are taking kids to experiences. And we advertise very clearly when we have those partners coming in the building. So parents are aware that it's happening. And I think the opportunity to kind of see that themselves, I think, has been really helpful. And as I said, at the school level, we have the advantage in this moment of time. There's so much advertising. There is so much external promotion. It's happening everywhere. Everybody knows that there is a need and a demand in terms of the trades. So those conversations with parents right now, again, are not as hard as they were before. It's interesting though, because sometimes they're taken aback that it's their daughter that wants to pursue that as opposed to maybe their son. But when they come into the building and there's really something to see it. When you come into a building and see the kind of environment that the girls have been in, when they are saying, hey, I really enjoy this, and the parents know based on, where we are in the world, that this is a viable option. And then they have a chance to talk to the teacher who themselves worked in that field, who's been supporting their daughter, and the guidance counselor who's been able to talk about the pathway, and the co-op teacher who set up the excursion. We really have the parents coming alongside because we have that kind of full range of supports and people who can speak to what the young women are experiencing and really allow them to follow the passion.
Amazing. That is excellent. And I mean, it's both really inspiring to see sort of Westview Centennial as an example where it's such a cohesive unit operating to sort of, advance your student body. In some other schools, it might be a little more fragmented. So I think the powerful thing that comes out of what you've just said is that we can't be sort of saying these things in isolated conversations. It really has to have the parents experiencing it themselves. It really has to be the co-op teachers, who can set it up with the different employers. It has to be the guidance counselors who can support with, subsidies for either post-secondary or directing into the training center. So it is that importance of having that collective approach from a school standpoint. So just be mindful of time. We're in the home stretch. Time flies when you're having fun or when you're confused, as my dad said. So I would love to hear just some closing thoughts that each of you might have for our audience. And if you had any sort of aha moments, things that you kind of were like, oh, I did not know that was a thing. I wrote down Blue Door. I'm going to be Googling some things after I leave here. So Lisa, I might turn it over to you if you have any closing thoughts or if you had sort of a moment, a light bulb moment during this discussion.
I think it was all things that I sort of was hoping I would hear from the panel, and just understanding that, everyone experiences things differently, but that we're all sort of on the same page in terms of our goals and getting these young women to really look at this career pathway and how exciting it can be for them and how important it is. And I think the biggest thing is just having that mentality of never giving up and understanding if it's something you love, to tune out all the other noise that's, people telling you, because we do have parents who say, you know what, oh no, we have members of our organization that are like, I would never want my child to do this. And it's like, why would you say that? When we meet these members and say, are you crazy? Like, look at your pension, look at the way you've lived, look at the benefits and the ability to own homes in other countries and travel, all because of the benefits you got working in the trades. So I think the thing is that if someone really has an idea in their mind and this is something they're passionate about and they really love, is to just keep pushing through and do that. Because I've had stories where young girls are like, I don't know, because I really love it, but my parents don't want me to do it, or they just think that it's probably dangerous, which again, it can be, absolutely. But if it's something you love, you will always be successful. At least that's what I believe. And there's examples right here on this panel that everybody loves and is passionate about what they do, has been from day one. And look at the success stories. We have it right here today.
Yeah. Well said, Lisa. Judy, what about you? Any sort of aha moments or things that you want to leave the viewers with?
Well, honestly, I've learned a lot today from both these women and Lisa, who was also here before she had to leave. It is amazing what you guys are doing and the stuff that's going on and the terminology, how it's changing and how we're interacting. And for the people out there, I would say when you start working, just remember it's your job, right? So I earned my respect. You have to remember that when you start, you have to learn. So learning, you're gonna have to listen to everybody talk and tell you a lot of things, and just know there's a lot of info out there and a lot of knowledge actually. But once you have it, you can go crazy with it. And it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be, there's always going to be problems at work. It's just like when you're in school, right? When you're in school, you don't like everyone. You don't want to be friends with everyone, but you are friends with people and you do have connections, and know that there's more support now than there has ever been. So if something does go wrong, you're not alone. There's tons of people out there who are on your side. And I got mentored, like I said, by both men and women. And I got personally mentored by, I think, some of the most incredible people I've ever met. And I say that because they both came in not with any of the old views. They didn't come in treating me different or doing anything different. They actually just came in and brought their A game and said, bring yours and we'll all go together. And we did that. And all of us are management now. And now we're mentoring the next phase. But these people were the ones, it wasn't just my oldest boss who was a little out of touch, let's say, but the people that came behind him were the ones that were training me, and they were the ones showing me. And they took it, both sides treated me equally and respectfully. And as long as I did the same, everything worked out. So It is possible. Nothing's impossible, for sure.
Yeah. And I love that. And I always come back to it around like a gender equal world, that, what women want, what girls want is the right to be treated equally, to be treated fairly, to feel safe, to feel like they can hit that, next level of management, to be able to explore different, areas of opportunity. It's about equal. We just want to be equal. So I thank you for bringing that home, Judy. And Rosalie, I think you're gonna be the one who closes us off. So any final words of wisdom or that aha moment that you want to share?
Well, first of all, I'm inspired by all the women that I've listened to today, truly. But I think the only thing I would want to finish off with, given that we are addressing this to young women, is that we need to make sure that we are not passively recruiting them, but we have to be actively recruiting them. I don't want us to have presentations and leave it at that. I think we need to go, and if there are young women, we need to tap them. We need to pull them into workshops. We need to pull them into excursions. We need to pull them into opportunities, because I think that's really when they are going to potentially make that first step into an incredible career in the trades.
I think when you said about the hook, it's, hooking them in with lunch and whatever it takes, it really is a big thing, bringing them in, because you're not going to look at it otherwise. So whatever it takes, if you have to play a movie, whatever it takes, but at least when they walk in the door, they have a fair chance now, because now they can actually see it for themselves. And I think that's what gets missed, is that they don't even try in the first place, so they have no idea what the options could be. But it's much larger of an industry than you realize. It's not just plumbers and electricians, all respect to them, but it's not just them. It's a lot of different people in a lot of different roles, and there's way more. We have railing guys, window guys, ceiling guys, floor guys, concrete guys, you name it. We have every possible thing going on in this industry, so there might be a place for you, whether it be in management or on site. And there's levels within all of those industries, right? So it's actually great. And meeting both of you and Lisa when she was here, fantastic. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, this was I had a blast with this. I mean, coming up with some of the questions and being like, what do people actually want to know? Like, what is the stuff that girls are probably just sitting there, maybe a little too quiet to ask, or maybe they don't have someone in the school who they can, go to and ask some of these questions. So I'm really thankful that we could have like a pretty open and frank conversation, and also just talk about the scope and breadth of opportunity that exists. That, if parents or if friends or whoever are telling you, really construction, that now you can say, really construction. The development industry, the construction industry is massive. There is just so much opportunity from, planning all the way to topping off and finishing a building. So I'm so grateful for, the three of you being here, and of course, Lisa Wright, who started us off on the right foot. I hope we all have an amazing International Women's Day tomorrow. And let's call it International Women's Month. Why not? If people can have birthday months, let's make it International Women's Month. But I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you to all the folks who tuned in online, and thank you again to our SpeakOut sponsor, RBC Future Launch. This was a really wonderful discussion to have on this day. So take care, everybody, and I guess we are signing off. I don't know. I should have practiced that. I should have rehearsed that. But thanks, everybody.